Hi, folks, and welcome to yet another episode of Talking Tech with Travis. Today, we are going to be talking about generative AI and its impact on cloud computing, on-prem computing, private clouds, all of the things. Stop talking to me about your widget. Start talking to me about my operating environment and how you bring it all together. And I am joined today with a good friend of mine who I've known for more than 20 years, Scott Sinclair, who is practice director at the Enterprise Strategy Group. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Travis. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, and let's get it kicked off right away. We've been talking for many years about that classic cloud trifecta: on-prem versus cloud versus hybrid. Maybe it's even a quad-fecta if you include multi in there. What are you seeing from customers and partners and industry leaders doing in terms of balancing that equation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Enterprise Strategy Group, we're an IT analyst firm. We do a ton of research on all things cloud, on-premises technology, what's going on in the industry. And so I'm just going to fire some stats at you that really kind of set the stage. The main thing that's happening is applications and data they're distributed everywhere, and there's really no consolidation in sight. Things are becoming even more distributed. So stat that I like to throw out is 82% of organizations in a recent study that we did identified that leveraging multiple public cloud providers delivers strategic benefits. So this idea of, hey, look, the world is all not going to one public cloud provider. It's leveraging multiple public cloud providers and multiple data centers and multiple co-location providers, edge locations, all of this at the same time. Now, we continue to see multiple factors driving really how application and data are being deployed and moved across this ever diverse and distributed ecosystem. Organizations look at public cloud and multi-cloud they want as a way to help accelerate time to value and improve access to innovation. But at the same time, one of the really fascinating trends that's really just come up in our research just in the past year or so is we're almost seeing on-premises and data centers having a little bit of a renaissance. And part of that is being driven by the fact that it's going to sound a little strange, but there's been such a massive adoption of public cloud services and a growth in cloud maturity that organizations have essentially a better sense of what the cloud is really good at and a sense of, hey, look, what it may not be good at. At the same time, on-premises technology, that innovation has continued to grow. We've seen it move from the traditional kind of three-tier server networking storage environments to being where it provides more of a private cloud or a cloud-like experience on premises. And so what organizations started figuring out is, hey, it isn't either or, it isn't a zero-sum game. It's a world where, hey, look, I have multiple arrows in my quiver. I have technologies in the cloud, I have technologies on premises, and it's best if I leverage really the best of both worlds or all the worlds together. I think one of the real fascinating things as it relates to a little bit into what we're going to talk about with AI and generative AI playing a role here, but some real fascinating stats that just came out of a recent study. One of which is as it relates to data. So 78% of organizations say they prefer to keep their high value proprietary data in their own data centers. Now, they may have data all over the place, but all things being equal, that would be their preference. In a similar fashion, and I think this is new for you, Travis, I don't think I've shared this one with you yet, 81% say we prefer to keep our business critical apps on premises. And even probably the most interesting stat that we've seen is just relative over time. 76% of organizations say that they view on-premises app deployments more favorably than they did 5 years ago. So, if I kind of take a step back as we think about this, multi-cloud, hybrid, all the things landscape, as you kind of talked about,
Right.
is as cloud adoption was growing, people saw it as this is a nirvana we need to move to. And then as maturity grew, organizations said, hey, look, this is not going to deliver everything we need. It delivers some wonderful things, but we need the ability to leverage all the technology assets at our disposal, whether that's on cloud, whether it's at the edge, whether it's in the data center. So that's kind of a summary of what we're seeing in terms of the application and data landscape as it stands today.
Scott, it's very interesting and very aligned to what we're seeing at Dell. We did a recent study, and we estimated that 84%, very very similar to, I think it was the 78% that you mentioned previously, of companies' business critical data, even after a couple of decades of the rise of the public cloud, is still on premises. And we're seeing that reality, as well as a growing reality within IT organizations, within on-prem providers, and within cloud providers, that the fact of the matter is everything exists, and it's no longer a question of whether everything's going to the public cloud or everything's going to stay on-prem. It's really that right tool for the job that you mentioned. I think folks would be very interested in what you're seeing and what your research is showing about the applications that have a tendency to stay on premises, and potentially some of the applications that have a tendency to go to the public cloud, and why.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been actively investigating is how do organizations make these decisions? And to kind of start it off, I started with the idea, that the premise, so to speak, of, hey, is it based on the app? Certain database applications perform better over here, or certain types of, maybe it's if I have large data sets, maybe that perform in a different space. And what you see is when you look at it by apps are spread everywhere. They're all over the place. So that's where you have to better understand a lot of it. A lot of the decision making is based off of the company itself, its level of own expertise, as well as, frankly, we talked a little bit about mission critical or high proprietary data, what they view their high value data to be. Are they a media firm? Are they a hospital? What does that mean for them, and what are their own internal skill sets? That being said, certain things start to bubble to the top. When we look at, in one of our research studies, we ask, okay, based on your overall environment, you're deploying a new app. Where should that app go? So for example, in a study, we ask organizations that identified themselves as cloud first. And we said, okay, you're cloud first. When do you deploy things in your data center? And what came out of it was, essentially, first off, nearly all of them said, yes, oh yeah, we have exceptions. We have things that we deploy in our data center, even though we identify ourselves as cloud first. But the things that pop up made a lot of sense. Data locality, data sovereignty concerns, security was top of mind. TCO was top of mind. And TCO is actually a real big factor. We talk about overall cost all the time, and there's been a general perception that public cloud is more cost effective. However, as hardware innovation has changed and as hardware costs have changed, what we've seen is the cost of on-premises decline. Mileage varies, obviously, so let me put that caveat out there. But the cost of on-premises has come down faster than public cloud. And so one of the craziest shifts in perception we've seen is, so we've asked organizations, so this is within the world of data storage. We ask in 2021, so 3 years ago, which provides a better TCO, cloud storage or on-premises storage? In 2021, organizations were 1.7 times more likely to say cloud storage. Fast forward today, we asked that same question a couple months ago. It shifted. Now it's slightly in favor of on-premises storage. So a larger percentage of organizations say that on-premises provides a better TCO than cloud storage. And is that because prices changed? A little bit, but it's more the fact that people have become better. They've have a better understanding of all the costs associated with it. Now, when it comes to organizations, as they look at, I talked about cloud first apps or cloud first organizations as they think about new app deployment. When it comes into organizations as they look at their existing set of workloads, what tends to stay on premises, or the things that they want to keep on premises, tend to be where there's a lot of data. People don't want to move data. Data has gravity. We talk about that a lot. But also the cost of performance is very expensive in the cloud. So if you have workloads that have a lot of data, that need a lot of low latency performance, there is a cost disparity that has come up, and it tends to be in, now again, mileage may vary, but it tends to often be in favor of on premises. And that hits right back into the everything we're seeing around Gen AI, as well as, the more, I guess it's weird to call it this, the more traditional AI of machine learning, deep learning. So for example, and this is my last stat. I know I'm throwing a whole bunch at you, but we asked.
You're on a roll, man. Keep going.
Well, we asked organizations, hey, do you have a new storage investment plan for your data center in the next? Now I'm drawing a blank. It's either 6 months or a year. So we asked them, do you have one active? And 68% said, yeah, we have a new planned deployment. We're going to deploy a net new workload in our data center. We said, okay, what are those things? More than half of them said either all or part of it would be dedicated to generative AI or AI. So
Wow.
there is a tremendous amount of AI investment happening on premises. And this is not to say, again, it's not a zero-sum game. AI investments happening in the cloud, but it's also happening in the data centers as well as it relates to private cloud. But often, again, I kind of mentioned this as well. It tends to be driven by the data. Where's your data, and where's that valuable data that you want to leverage in these initiatives?
Yeah, Scott. I mean, thank you for bringing us to generative AI, because it can't be a 2024 conversation without talking about AI and generative AI. And I think what you're seeing is very similar to what we're seeing, is that it's a new conversation. It's a open discussion on where generative AI should be deployed, and what we're seeing, especially from enterprise customers, is sort of a corollary of what you were talking about, which is, for generative AI to work best, it needs to have the best data, and that data needs to be specific to an organization or to a company to make it valuable to that organization or company. And whether it's 78 or 84% of that is still on premises. So we have a belief that generative AI workloads, there's a lot of value to deploying those on premises. I'd be interested to hear what you're seeing in your research. Are you seeing that generative AI is impacting on-prem deployments versus cloud versus hybrid?
I think the best way to put it is it's impacting everything everywhere, but so much depends off of.
Everything everywhere all at once all the time?
Exactly. If put together a solution like that, we might win an Oscar.
Yep.
But to be quite candid, we use these terms, generative AI and machine learning and AI, just out there as if those are in particular workloads. I mean, they're defining a broad set of ever-evolving use cases. So it's generative AI. Are we talking about, chatbots? Are we talking about what type of data sets are we running? Where does that data reside today? Are we looking at, machine learning? I've been talking to organizations, just these past few weeks, and you start to see use cases start to emerge where you start to see a combo of generative AI and machine learning. An organization saying, look, we need this machine learning, but we need to have better results, better predictability in our results of our algorithms from machine learning. And one way to do that is with synthetic data. Well, wait a minute. If we can't get enough data to train, can we take our existing data and use generative AI to increase our data set that we can train our machine learning? So organizations are starting to be it's starting to be creative, but also pushing the envelope in terms of what type of use cases that they have. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the data.
Yeah.
Whether it's machine learning, whether it's generative AI, it's all relative to how valuable and how specific your data is. One of the things now I'm going to focus a little bit on generative AI, but we see similar things obviously happen in machine learning. But a lot of the focus is on generative AI and hallucinations. As your model becomes more, gets better trained on your specific data, the chances of hallucinations decrease. But the reason why I get hyper focused on that is if I'm trying to build advocacy within my organization and trying to get the rest of the organization behind doing investments in generative AI, well, hallucinations are very costly. If they come up in a manner that make people question the overall investment, then all of a sudden that can set you back months or even years if the organization says, yeah, this isn't for us, let's go in a different direction. So at the end of the day, data management is key. Now, now let's go back to that hybrid, private, public, cloud decision-making world. If you're an organization where you already have a huge data set in the public cloud and you leverage that and that's part of it, well, then you can get accelerated time to value by keeping some AI workloads in the cloud. That being said, going back to kind of the analysis that we also have in our research, we know there's a cost disparity for storing large data sets for a long period of time that need low latency performance. If you do that in the cloud, chances are it's going to be more costly over time than if you do it on premises.
Yeah.
So these are the questions that organizations are having as they think about these decisions. And often if you have the data already on premises, well, then maybe it makes sense to see, okay, what can we do to augment that? And can we keep these workloads on premises so we're not moving massive amounts of data in lots of places? The other thing, though, that's key is I talk about, because I don't want to ignore this point. I talk about data as if it's a static thing, right? Where you have a certain amount of data and that's just your data. Well, data is constantly growing. And one of the things we've seen in our research is as you start these, whether AI or generative AI initiatives, the amount of data that you apply to them scales very quickly because what you find out is, well, more data, we get better quality algorithms or better quality, AI initiatives. And so because of that, well, hey, if it's working pretty well, let's throw more data at it. So these workloads continue to scale and they can scale quite quickly. And with all that being said, this is another stat that I knew you would like is 88% of organizations identify, hey, look, all things being equal, we prefer to run AI on premises.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's
That
a new stat.
that is amazing, and that's very aligned to what we're seeing. And I guess I've saved the best question for last. We, in many of our conversations, talk to customers who believe in the promise of generative AI. They understand sort of this balance between public and private cloud. They understand that to get the best and the most out of generative AI, they need to use their company specific or industry specific or proprietary data. The biggest question we get asked is, how do you get started? And we have a ton of capabilities in terms of advisory services and reference architectures and end-to-end solutions that really help customers go from these are the use cases I want to identify to how am I going to implement it in my environment. What do you tell customers when they ask you how do I get started?
It starts almost with seek help, not mentally or emotionally, but these are hard challenges. They require multiple technologies that have to be coordinated. I honestly, I've seen some of the stuff you guys are doing, and I've been very impressed with what you guys are doing. You're
Oh,
not
thank
the only
you.
people doing it. There's a bunch of systems
But we're doing it.
integrator
You can say we're
partners.
doing it the best. You can say that.
Well, I'll have to measure it. We'll have to do a bake off. But to that being said, the stuff you guys are doing, I've been real impressed with their services capabilities. You guys have services where you can go in and work with, we talked about data, where you can work with an organization's data set and come out with clean data ready to do training after the services. That stuff like that's really impressive and valuable, because where most organizations are starting, and this is something I've heard over and over again, is these projects start with, our CEO said we need to do generative AI. How do we start? Well, we need a GPU. Let's go find a GPU. And then it gets into, well, okay, maybe we use cloud, whatnot, which is jumping
GPU
ahead
shows
like
up and
seven
they look
steps.
at the GPU.
Yeah, it is. It's what is it? Simba at the
Yeah,
beginning of
exactly.
Lion King being held up. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the way they're treating the GPU. Which GPUs are incredibly powerful and they're incredibly valuable. I've heard you guys sell them very well.
Quite a
Um,
few of them, yes.
but to that end, it going straight to the infrastructure buy without actually thinking through the data, the use case, what's valuable, evaluating different things, thinking about how you roll it out is critical. Because one of the things that and you guys are ahead on this message. There's a couple other people that have joined the chorus, but especially for generative AI, there's a lot of value you can create by taking an existing model and using retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, to augment that. And if you go that route, the infrastructure demand is much less than you would anticipate. So there's ways to address these use cases in a much more effective, efficient, less costly fashion than some people think. But all that being said, I think it's important to recognize there is no one company that can address all things related. So it's important to work with partners such as yourself, where you guys can come to a place where, hey, it's not just Dell technology. Let's bring in other people from other areas, organizations that have worked with other companies in your industry that have done things in similar use cases, and so you can build on that expertise. So that's really kind of the number one way to start is don't go it alone. Explore your options, identify a use case, and find a partner that can help you along in the journey.
Well, so what I heard you say, Scott, is to get started, call Dell. That's what I heard you say. So thank you so much, Mr. Sinclair, for joining me. It has been an absolute pleasure. I don't know why we haven't done this before. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. And thank you all to listening to yet another episode of Talking Tech with Travis. And we'll catch you next time.